kind of, oh, that's the light back there. Okay, hope you guys are doing well. I'm just here, and as part of my goal to go live for the next couple of weeks in a row when I have time to do this, each night I want to explore different topics that I want to improve my ability to talk about and provide some value to those who tune in live or watch the replay. So it's about 7:20 here at night. I've been reading and working on things all day while I have the chance in between work contracts. And I wanted to just go live and talk about acupressure. Now, acupressure is a fantastic way for relieving stress. And for my research, that there's a lot of ways we can use acupressure to relieve common maladies and to reduce stress and actually promote the feeling of well-being. And so I wanted to talk about acupressure a little bit in this, invite you to join in as we talk about and explore this subject. And I'm going to be looking at this book here called Acupressure for Emotional Healing by Michael Reed, Cash, PhD, and Beth Ann Henning. So this is the book here. And so I am a certified Qigong teacher, but even then, you get that certification, there's so much more I want to continue to deepen my knowledge base with. And one of the things I've really been exploring over the past couple of months especially has been acupressure. I've always been a very skeptical person, and it kind of took me time to, one, get into practicing Qigong and meditation and these things. And I felt like as I continued to kind of study and contemplate and practice things together, I realized that actually there can be some legitimacy to acupressure. And the best way for me to go about it was to learn some of the basic points for everyday use and then to practice them. And then just to see what I notice and what I experience. And I think that's so important because you can learn about acupressure by just reading a book or websites or something like that and just kind of believing or not believing that it works. But I actually think what is required is a combination of studying the theory and then actually practicing acupressure. And I think those of us who are interested in things like meditation and mindfulness, we can explore acupressure open-mindedly and through curiosity. And then we can know whether or not it works or what it actually does. But even then, there's some complications that we can discuss there because every day you're going to be feeling different. And I think that's what's so interesting about this. We tend to be used to things in the West like this pill cures this thing. But from what I've studied from reading acupuncture manuals, is that the reality of it is much more complicated and subjective and murky. But that being said, these points, these acupressure techniques actually have a lot of great benefits. So the book I'm reading right now is Acupressure for Emotional Healing. Again, it's by Michael Reed Cash and Beth Ann Henning. And what I'm doing is I'm going through these exercises that they have. They're basically like a sequence of acupressure points. And I just lost my page, which is great. I will have to find that again. I'll keep talking while I look. And so what I've been doing is kind of going through the book and trying different practices. And then because acupressure is regarded generally as safe, as long as you don't do it for like hours and hours and hours, I've been kind of picking points that I like from it and then experimenting with it on my own. There's a few key points I really like that actually I want to talk about here. And I was just looking at this one particular sequence, which was, here it is, natural high self-care routine. And so one of the things I'm liking that I'm learning about acupressure is that it actually produces a lot of feel-good chemicals. Helps to clear stress and pain and actually promote feel-good chemicals. See, when I grew up in a household where people dealt with stress with things like alcohol, and these types of techniques and wellness practices were not very well thought of in my culture or the people around me. And so, as I developed my anxiety and my stress, for me, I would turn to things like marijuana as a young adult, and that came with a lot of negative side effects for me personally. I think some people will really vouch for it, but I'm kind of going beyond that now into looking for ways I can deal with stress that are more healthy and natural. And so that's kind of what draws me partly to this book. But what's interesting as well is that as I continue to practice acupressure, it's changing my relationship to my body, because you kind of start to discover that you really don't know that much about how you're holding your stress and how your body really works. So I wanted to share this one point. Actually, there's 2 points that I really like and that feels really good. And so if you are watching this live or the replay, you can just try it right now. So acupressure is regarded generally as safe. Of course, if you have pre-existing medical conditions, always check with your doctor. But assuming you're like a normal, healthy person, you can try this with me. So I'm gonna zip this up. This point here is called gallbladder 21. Don't worry too much about the names. I know there's no gallbladder on your shoulder, but the Chinese have certain maps related with certain organs, and it's complicated, but we can just focus on keeping it simple. So it's right here. It actually feels really good. So basically what you do, and I had a clock a second ago. Of course, there it is behind me. So for about 2 minutes on each side, you just squeeze the point. Okay, and it's right there. Don't worry about it being exact. I'm actually looking at 2 different acupressure sources, and they show this point being in different places. So it's not about being exact. So you squeeze here, and you give it gentle but firm pressure. And then you breathe deeply and slowly. So in through the nose, out through the nose. With that gentle, firm pressure. And again, it's really best to, I think when you start to work on these points, to be open and curious. And as you're pressing and breathing, distraction free, to just sort of notice what happens. Now, something I've noticed myself is that as you do these acupressure points, they become more potent over time through repeated use. Sometimes I'll try an acupressure point and I'll be like, I didn't really notice anything. But the more you activate and stimulate the point, I find they become more obvious, more effective. And of course, practicing Qigong and mindfulness and breath work, these things will all help aid in acupressure as well. So as you're squeezing it, it's a gentle, firm pressure on the point, and you just breathe in and over the nose deeply. We've got 5 more seconds on this side, and then we'll do the other one. Cool. And we'll do 2 minutes on this side. So go here. I recently hurt this thumb, but we'll give it a try. So as I do this and I feel into that side, I notice a releasing of pressure shifting of the energy on that side of my body. Actually, this side was fine, but this side has given me a bit of a headache actually on my right side. I notice a relief of stress. There's actually a feeling of like of joy or of release, like a feeling of happiness, but it's in the muscles and on the side of the body. That's something I really like about acupressure. Sometimes we're blocked off from our positive emotions because we're holding the stress physically and energetically in the muscles, and acupressure helps to release that. I'll actually share after this some parts of the book to talk a bit about more how that works because I find it really interesting. Yeah, that feels so good. Super nice. And we tend to hold a lot of our stress and tension in this area. I don't know if you've ever had anyone give you like a massage back here, but it feels so good. And so anyway, so that acupressure point is gallbladder 21. And according to this, like I have like a list of all the acupressure points. And according to Chinese medicine, that it relaxes the sinews, regulates qi, relieves pain, and they use it for when people have shoulder, neck, back, and arm pain, stiffness, and headache, which is like really common. So if you're like working, sitting all day, that can be a fantastic point. So I'll probably make a video on this point in the future. My plan is to, over the coming years, to make a lot of resources around this. And so part of the reason I do these lives is to explore and to get better at talking about these things. I spend most of my day reading about like marketing and sales and these sorts of things. Let's see here. Well, I thought there was a clear section here. Obviously, did not plan at all for this live stream, guys. All these live streams will be casual, and my actual content will do better. Okay, yeah, here it is. So I'm going to read a little section here from this book called Acupressure for Emotional Healing. And I thought this was really interesting about acupressure. So according to the authors, I'm going to read directly from the book. Acupressure, so that is pressing of points along the body. Using this naturally healing art has no side effects, which is one of the things I really like about it. Your hands are the only equipment you need. The art of acupressure utilizes the sensitivity of the human hand to release endorphins. That's why it feels so good. You're releasing endorphins in the muscles, your body's natural pain-relieving chemicals. These neurochemicals are released by your pituitary gland and get distributed through the cerebrospinal fluid into the bloodstream. Simply holding certain points with steady, firm pressure for a few minutes will relieve these pain relief agents. We believe endorphins play an important role in cultivating both physical and emotional healing. Tension and pain accumulate at acupressure points. As a point is held, muscular tension yields to finger pressure, enabling the fibers of the muscles to elongate and relax, blood to flow freely, and toxins to be released and eliminated. When blood and bioelectrical energy circulate properly, you have a greater sense of harmony, health, and well-being. As a result, your symptoms are alleviated and your circulation is increased sufficiently. Also, what's interesting is acupressure points have high electrical conductivity. Acupressure points have high electrical conductivity on the surface of the skin. Holding a point allows life energy to flow through the body. Traditional Chinese medicine refers to its energy as qi. In Japan, they call it ki. Western scientists have proven the existence of this energy using microvolt meters, high-tech electrical devices that measure energy and electrical charge through the body. So that's kind of the basic idea, is that holding these acupressure points helps relieve muscular tension, produces endorphins. It's a pain-relieving chemical, and the authors believe that these endorphins and these chemicals released through the practice of acupressure are really important for emotional and physical healing. And I can remember a few stories of me using acupressure. I remember sitting on a bus, riding up to visit my sister. It was about a 9-hour bus ride, and I was really stressed out that day. I was thinking a lot about my future and how my ambitions, and I just was like so stressed out that I didn't quite know where I wanted to go and how I wanted to get there. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna do like a 20-minute acupressure set. And I remember going through all these points, reading this manual, going through a different book I have, a sequence of acupressure points. And like I was like, whoa, I feel like really good. My anxiety's gone. I feel less stressed. It cleared out all that energetic stress and anxiety. And this was like early on of me starting to look into acupressure. I was very surprised. I didn't expect it to work. And I think that's one of the common things with acupressure is because it's so low, like you're not taking a substance, you're not going for a run. It's such a simple and subtle thing that it's surprising that it works, but it really helped me. And then I can think of a recent time on a recent work contract. I was going through a bit of a depression. It lasted a couple of weeks, and of course because I started working, it threw me off my schedule. I wasn't doing my regular things, self-care routines. And I woke up one morning early. I was very depressed. I thought, you know what? I have a bit more agency this morning. I'm going to try some of the acupressure points that I've been reading about and practicing. And so I picked 5 or 6 of these acupressure points and I did them in the morning. And actually it lifted my depression for the rest of the day. I felt very good the rest of the day. So for me, in those particular moments, it helped. Now I'm very cautious to say like acupressure will always work every single time. And in fact, my Qigong master, Lee Holden, he says, you know, depending on what you're using the points for, you need to do them repeatedly for a long period of time. Another thing as well is if you haven't been practicing Qigong on a regular basis, if you don't have a breathwork practice or a mindfulness practice, I do suspect the acupressure might take more to get from it. I think one of the benefits of doing Qigong is that you're stretching, you're breathing, you're always activating the muscles and stretching them. And so I think it makes the muscles more susceptible to the Qigong practice. And then I think learning how to breathe fully and deeply and how to let go of stress to the breath helps as well. So I think there's a lot of things that we can work together. And so I think that was kind of a big discovery for me, was that there are a lot of techniques and tools that are available to us through just these practices. Thank you for the nice comments. I hope you have a great day as well. that when we are willing to study things like Qigong, and I have lots of free routines here on YouTube where you can practice Qigong for free. When we start to practice things like mindfulness with that, different types of breathing exercises and how the breath works and how the breath is related to our nervous system, how the breath is related to stress and emotions, and all these fantastic things. Like I'm studying courses from Dan Brule, who's teaching me how high performers, how public speakers, how U.S. Navy Marines use the breath and life or death circumstances in order to achieve high performance, for example. And you can also use the breath to clear stress and to regulate. There's like CEOs and leaders from all around the world who are using breathing techniques. And when you also start to use these acupressure techniques, there's like a really big toolkit that we can develop to help ourselves to feel really great. And in particular, what I am really focused on is I want to help high performers, people who are like busy professionals who are working, to help coach and teach them how to have less stress and more energy so they can achieve their goals in life. Now, I'm coming at this from a particular framework. Like I am really rooted in the mindfulness, Qigong, breathwork space. I'm exploring acupressure. But I also think, of course, it's important that we have the Western science and the Eastern science, these things coming together. And being holistic about this as well. You know, acupressure is great. You know, if you're chronically tired and stressed and you're trying to use acupressure to feel better, but you know, your nutrition matters too, and how you sleep matters as well. I personally measure my sleep every night on my Oura ring, and that really helps me a lot to kind of figure out, you know, why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Having data to back up your health is really important. I think it's important that we balance not only using data as feedback, but also how we feel subjectively. There's a lot of layers. Like the ring measures some things, but it can't measure everything. The human body is just too complex. There's too many layers to it. But I am really inspired and excited by what I'm discovering through Qigong, acupressure, and these breathing exercises. You know, I'm still skeptical. There's still some aspects, obviously a lot for me to learn, right? I'm pretty skeptical about everything. But I think it's that skepticism that makes me curious to explore everything that I can. Like I want to get direct experience and things before I kind of say that they work or don't work. And yeah, it's really quite amazing, you know, what these things have to offer. And some of the things I like about acupressure, of course, acupressure again, this is like massaging, forms of self-massage. It's a form of self-care. Is that, yeah, you can practice anytime, anywhere. That's what's so great. So I think if you can learn a couple of acupressure points that you really like, and I think the way that you figure out what those are is through reading books like this. My teacher Lee Holden has an acupressure workshop. Learning some of the common celebrity points, and then committing, maybe set a reminder on your phone that you're going to commit to practicing those points for 2 or 3 minutes a day. I think even just having 1 or 2 points that are overall good for clearing stress and regulating, according to the literature, and practicing those acupressure points on a regular basis, start to create a relationship with 1 or 2 points. And then you can use that acupressure point anywhere, anytime you need. I think that's what's so cool about these practices. I think what's cool too, and I'm just kind of reading here some of the benefits of this self-care practice, is you can kind of, like the way you work an acupressure point you can do it on your own. So I'll show you a couple of the ways that I've learned to work acupressure points. So let's say we're going to do a point. What's the easiest one to show? Maybe this one. We'll use this one here. So this one, roughly in the center of the palm here, is the Lao Gung point. It's the pericardium 8 point. Now, in acupressure, you can do acupressure by just pressing firmly on a point. And when you press firmly, maybe you do it for about a minute or two, and you basically hold the point, you feel into it, and you breathe deeply. So that's one way. Another way you can work an acupressure point is you can massage it in like a circle. You can do the circle in different directions. There's different ideas around which direction, what that does. And then you can also press into an acupressure point, kind of in a throbbing motion. And what this book here is saying, that as you're exploring an acupressure point through openness and curiosity, feeling what it does, you can actually try pushing at it from different angles. Like maybe you notice there's a couple of different muscles around the acupressure point. Maybe you want to press more into one muscle. Maybe you want to, if you're going to press, maybe you like to press on a certain angle or a certain way, or maybe you like to push harder on some points or softer, depending on how you're feeling. So you can kind of get to know that acupressure point for yourself, how you want to massage it, how it feels good. And of course, because these acupressure points are releasing endorphins, it's a pain-killing chemical, they also tend to feel really good and be really enjoyable. And so it's not just like a boring, you're pressing your acupressure point, imagining it's doing something. You actually get to feel the benefits of the releasing of endorphins, which is something I really like about acupressure. Yeah, that's kind of cool as well, is acupressure points can help us develop a sense of self-reliance. It's good to have self-care techniques that we have that are our own. And I think acupressure is one of those, because acupressure helps us to have a form of self-care that we like. So if this acupressure is helping to release endorphins, improve your energetic flow, relieve stress, help you feel better. Maybe you have certain acupressure points that are better for sleep, help you to relax in the evening. It's great to have some of these tools because they give us a sense of self-reliance, which I think is great. I also think what's cool is once you kind of know how to do acupressure, it's basically free. So it's a free form of self-care that feels really good. And you can do it whenever you want, okay? And you can individualize it, make it work for you. There's no side effects, and it's a light, easy thing to practice. But I do think it's a practice, and I do think acupressure requires practice and observation and curiosity, and actually a commitment to doing it over time to get the benefit from it and to learn about it. And the reason here, the book mentions self-care cultivates an inner healing relationship with yourself that is nurturing and grounding. This connection fosters trust, healing, and it increases your awareness of your body's unique expression and wisdom. So I think it's one of the things I've noticed in Western culture is we don't really take time to cultivate that relationship to ourselves. It's important to listen to others, give us health advice or feedback, or we have wearables like the Oura Ring, which I wear, which gives me stress and heart rate data and so many important biometrics that I wouldn't know without it. But it's also important to cultivate your own subjective, direct experience with your thoughts and your emotions, and how doing certain things makes you feel. We all know that massages feel really good. It feels good when we stretch. It feels good when we exhale or yawn. A yawn can feel really good. And we know that if we sit for long periods of time, that can create a lot of stress in our bodies. We don't feel good. Like a lot of my clients, coaching clients I work with, they're busy professionals who are really committed to their jobs. And so sometimes they'll sit for very long periods during the day. They'll work 7 straight hours. They'll even skip their lunch, whether it's to get more done or to go home early if they have a, they have to work their hours and then they're done for the day, kind of a thing. And a lot of these people complain about having tight neck and shoulders. A lot of stress builds up in their body. And so acupressure can be a great way of actually mitigating some of this. So if you're in an office and you can't really stretch or do your qigong practice or yoga, and if you're constrained with time, usually in an office you can get up and walk around. Brendan Burchard, studying his book High Performance Habits, he recommends that high performers get up and move around every 55 minutes or 50 minutes. Super important to take a break, get the blood flowing and move around. And then actually, if you were to get up and walk around every 55 minutes, you see you walk around for 3 minutes, get some water or something, sit back down, and you just were to do an acupressure point for a minute each, I think you'd notice a clearing of stress as well. Especially if you were to do even just like the acupressure points up here on the shoulders, where we tend to hold a lot of stress if we're sitting at a desk all day. So that's really nice. That's really interesting. I look forward to continuing to explore the different acupressure points, seeing how they benefit me. And then it's interesting too when you can practice one acupressure point, but then when you combine them in sequences, then I think that's something I'm really interested in, and that's what I like about this book here, Acupressure for Emotional Healing, is this combination of points. It seems like by doing certain points in a certain sequence, you're able to achieve like basically a desired result. And it'll be interesting more to practice and to experiment with these different acupressure point sequences, as well as to contemplate the philosophy behind them, and to sort of figure out like why have they chosen these particular acupressure points for this particular emotional type of healing. These will be things I'll be figuring out more and more and contemplating as I go. I think it's kind of this balance that I think we need to strike when we're exploring new modalities of this inner work and this self-care, is trying to understand, like to be open-minded enough to try it and to get the benefit from it, but to not just conform instantly to the claims made by authors or books, right? So, but the one thing that is interesting is acupressure has like 3,000 or 4,000 years of history behind it. It's been cultivated for a long time, practiced for a long time, and there are more and more studies coming out about acupuncture and acupressure. A lot of interesting stuff to be discovered about all this. So I look forward to continuing to explore this, and I think what's interesting too is like if you're someone who's a meditator, you're interested in meditation. I really think that bringing acupressure into your meditation can make a big difference. Like you can calm your thoughts, you can focus on the breath, you can relax into the present moment. But what I've learned from studying and going through different types of meditation practices is there are many different types. And so I do think that meditation that also uses and makes use of acupressure could bring a lot of great results as well. Like what's this pericardium 6 point? Pericardium 6. This is one of the celebrity points. Where is pericardium 6? Yeah, okay. Hmm. When I first got into doing meditation, I read a book called, I think it was Towards the Psychology of Awakening. And it was an interesting book that explored classical Western psychology. And the other one explored, no, the same book. It explored Western classical psychology along with Buddhist practices of meditation. And this was one of the early books that I read. I read the whole thing. I know that. This was years ago. That kind of opened my mind to a lot of these practices and gave me a good framework for all this. Was that there's different aspects of the human experience that are interesting and are worth exploring. So one of them is that we have a cognition, we have a way of thinking, right? We have a psychology. And in the West, we've really studied psychology very deeply. We have different forms of psychology, cognitive behavioral psychology, Jungian psychology, Freudian psychology, all these different schools of psychology. And then the Buddhists, for example, they did meditation. So they were more skilled in practices of awakening and of exploring consciousness, and not so much thought or cognitive behavior, but the actual backdrop, the actual mind and consciousness. That's a basic premise of this book. So that gave me an interesting framework that they're both worth exploring. So it's worth studying and going to therapy, getting therapy, reading books on different types of psychology. But it's also meaningful to practice meditation. And these things complement each other. Anyway, that was very interesting to me. And then as I continued to study and to learn over the coming years, I listened to a video on YouTube. I think it's by actualize.org, Leo Gura, and he talks about the staggering depth of your lack of awareness. And he basically shows that most of us, most humans, and it's hard to say, but most of us are operating with 2% awareness of what's actually happening around us. And so when I kind of started to realize okay, so we have a psychology, and then we have these traditions coming from the East where they've done meditation, and we have this really low level of awareness as individuals. Like, you have to ask yourself, like, do you really understand your anger or your happiness, or where you came from? Like think of all the different emotions that humans have. Like, do we really understand them? Like, no. They're actually very mysterious to all of us, even though we experience them every day. And so that is very interesting. As humans, that we don't know where we came from. We don't really know what our emotions are. We don't really know where our thoughts come from. This was very interesting to me. And man, I don't even, like, where am I going with this? Basically, then just kind of relating this back to the acupressure, I realized, reading these books on Chinese medicine, on Buddhism and Taoism, that some of the people who, like, for example, if you're a Western psychologist, one of the things you've done is you've been to lots of lectures. Maybe you've written papers and studied the works of previous psychologists. You've done experiments, for example, and you've contributed to the body of knowledge of Western psychology through experiments and proving what you're doing is legitimate, and you know, all the things they're doing, actually working with patients and getting your clinic hours in and stuff like this. But a lot of it is rote memory, and it's symbols, and it's cognitive frameworks, and it's interpretations of words, and you're kind of, the Western psychology is always building a map and a model and a framework which is working from. But then I've read some books from the Taoist perspective, and their education was very different. Like, if you were going to become a high-level Taoist sage or something like this, you would spend years from a very young age going through exercises that would reveal to you aspects of human consciousness. So, for example, I read this book called Opening the Dragon Gate, and I do think it's a fictional book, but I do think it's based on actual practices. And so the book is about this young man who gets selected by these old Taoist wizards. They're not actual, like, magical wizards, but they're people who have attained certain insights into human consciousness. But they can't just say them to people and have them understand it or prove it with a study. They have to actually make this young person go through the practices to have those insights for themselves. And so some of these early practices this young person would do in his education, it's very different from reading and writing and memorizing, was they would sit him after school, he would come to work with these Taoist wizards. They would put him in a shed for 3 hours, and he would sit in silence, and he would just observe with no distractions. So he would observe over the seasons, the changing of temperature in the room. He would feel the moisture changing in the air as the evening passed. He would observe his breathing, his heartbeat. He would observe the sensations in his skin and in his fingers. And over time, he developed such a deep sense of introspection and awareness of what was around him, because that's what he was being trained to do, that even his own awareness of his thoughts began to change, and of his memories. He could see into his body in a way that other people couldn't, because he spent hours doing nothing else but just observing his actual breathing and his heartbeat and his emotions and feeling the rumbles in his stomach and all these things. So through these practices, he gained an awareness that other people didn't. And I started to question and realize that perhaps some of these practices like yoga, acupressure, qigong, what makes them so different from Western health practices is that they're coming from these deep meditative and observational practices, which are very intense, they're subjective, they require thousands of hours of boring, boring introspection and observation that we don't have in the West because we spend hours sitting in classrooms and we're constantly playing ego games with other people. We have to, please our professors and don't look different and, please our colleagues and all these things. And we're always striving and going. And now we have cell phones and distraction and fast food and movies and all these things distracting us that the staggering depth of our lack of awareness of how our bodies work is probably massive. And it's probably a bigger issue than we think. And I think that's, there is a growing movement toward mindfulness and meditation in our culture, and I think that's really great. But, I think that's probably why, if you look at Buddhism, I think there's like a pop culture understanding of what the Buddha did. And I think there's like, when you go more deeply into what he taught, but I think a key takeaway is that he's teaching that through deep observation and understanding is how you cure suffering. And then he did this, and he created sort of a system and model and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's what's so interesting about these things. And so that's kind of where I am. And I know myself, I think there's a lot of work to do. And I think obviously starting much younger, I think would have been more ideal. But I think I kind of have to start off where I am. And I will be planning over the coming years to do Vipassana retreats, which are 10-day meditation retreats. And I mean, I'm pretty young. I think I'm actually in an age where I need to kind of find that balance of practical everyday mindfulness and meditation. And when I'm older, will probably be a time for more deep levels of inner work, deeper spiritual work, and those types of things. That's more something to do as I get older. But I should be, planning these 10-day meditation retreats and committing to them. They're offered for free in my country, so that's something that I'll be doing. But yeah, so basically, now what I'm doing here in Effortless Qigong is I'm learning these techniques that have been cultivated over thousands of years in this way and making them easy and accessible for people in daily life, to householders, to people who are busy, and kind of continuing to grow my skill set, my information. And I'm doing that through these live streams. I'm offering coaching this month while I'm in between contracts to people. I am going to be releasing more Qigong routines. I'm doing a workshop later this month, which I'll be talking a bit more probably next week. It's a men's sort of sexual energy workshop. I'll be leading a Qigong component there. And yeah, so anyway, I want to keep doing these lives. I while I'm off in between contracts, because it helps me to deepen my thinking, and I think for those who tune in, it might be inspiring to some degree. So yeah, it's like, don't knock acupressure or qigong or breathwork or mindfulness or even classical styles of yoga, because I really don't think they're understood by our culture. And I think the best way to understand them is through practicing them with an open mind, because I think that on average, most of us do not have a solid grasp of what anything is. Um, it's funny, if you could even take a spoon and you could ask the world's best scientist what a spoon is, and he doesn't really know, because he doesn't know what an atom is, or what that's made of, or where it came from, or how it's possible, or what time is, what gravity is. We don't know what any of these things are. We have theories, maps, and models, concepts. Um, so yeah, open-mindedness is important. Practicing not knowing is important. Being open-minded and curious is important, I think. And then, of course, it's interesting what the Taoist philosophy is. This is kind of what they're a big part of Taoist philosophy is not knowing, and we want to kind of deconstruct our maps of meaning and models to kind of become more aligned with the Tao. The uncarved block of wood in the Tao, which of course is infinity, and that can only be accessed through not knowing. And what else here? Yes, the Taoists have a very playful and fun approach to life. This idea that, you know, nothing can really be known isn't a depressing point of view. It's an openness for playfulness, and ultimately, I mean, everything I'm talking about here is because I'm trying to live a good life, and I'm trying to be healthy and happy and enjoyable, and yeah. So anyway, this was a short live. I kind of am digressing a bit here, but I recommend this book called Acupressure for Emotional Healing. And if you find books hard to follow, because they are, especially in our age where we're so distracted, consider looking up some acupressure point videos on YouTube. I don't have any right now because I want to explore acupressure for another couple of months before I really dive deep into it. There's another couple more courses I want to take on it as well. I am a certified Qigong teacher. I can talk about these things responsibly, but in order to really be responsible, I want to go slow. I want to have more of a personal understanding of these practices through observation. And there's another course I want to take by Lee Holden in the near future to kind of have a 50, 60 more hours of more training before I talk about them. But what's great about acupressure is that it's safe to do. There's no side effects. It's one of the safest self-care, self-healing practices that's out there. And so if I can inspire you to do one thing, is look up on YouTube acupressure. Actually, Lee Holden at Holden Qigong has free videos on YouTube teaching he's one that's like 3 common acupressure points everyone should know. I think you should look them up. They're all, I think there's these 3 here. And give them a try. Try them for a couple of days. Pick one of the 3 and just do that every day for 2 minutes. And I think you're gonna notice a big difference. Combine that with deep, slow breathing, clear stress, release those endorphins, enjoy that emotional healing that comes from this practice. And I'll see you in the next live stream. Stay well, stay healthy. Keep your mind open and curious. Be inspired every day. Learn something new. Be kind to yourself and others. And I'll see you in the next one.